Hi everyone, I'm Reading with Jack and today I'm here with a Let's Talk video about 5-star books. This was inspired by a video that I saw on Amber's channel and it was a really interesting video. I loved the points that were raised and I really wanted to make my own video to talk about my own personal thoughts. If you've been watching my videos for quite a while or following me on Goodreads for example, you will realise that I don't really give 5 out of 5 to many books, and this is partly because I'm very harsh when I'm rating books. If a book is not perfect, I will really not want to give it a 5 out of 5. And ultimately, because I do rate in 0.5s, a lot of books do get 4.5 instead of 5. They're generally relatively similar, but a 5 out of 5 book for me has a very unique quality. It has a sense of perfection, of beauty. It is something that stands out among the crowd, and that is why I don't really give many books 5 out of 5, because the ones that I do give 5 out of 5 stand out. They stand out as amazing books that everyone should read, and books that I will rave about all of the time. I will keep rereading them. If I ended up giving a lot of books 5 out of 5, for me it wouldn't have that special spark and they wouldn't stand out as much. Of course, I do understand why a lot of booktubers give 5 out of 5 to books that have flaws, particularly if you're rating in just general systems like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rather than in 0.5s, because there are definitely books that deserve more than a 4, and it would only make sense to give them a 5 if you can't give them a 4.5. 5 out of 5 books definitely have very precise qualities that I'm looking for. On a general level, the characters have to be very well developed. They have to be characters that I connect with and emote with, characters that I actually feel very passionate about and I can argue about. You know, if someone is insulting my favourite protagonist in a 5-star book, I will defend them as much as I possibly can. I would rather have 5 really well developed characters in a book than 500 non-developed characters that are actually not very important for the plot. I really don't like it when there are too many characters in books, and characters that are just there for the sake of having characters. It doesn't impress me if there are a lot of characters. In fact, what does impress me and what gets a 5 out of 5, if there are very few characters that are each very, very well developed. The plot in a 5-star book as well has to be very well paced. It has to keep my attention throughout the entire book. This doesn't mean it has to be action-packed throughout, but it has to keep me questioning, it has to keep me reading. It really just has to be a page-turner. A 5 out of 5 book for me is very consistent as well. A lot of 4.5s or even 4 tend to be very good most of the time, but there are always a few chapters that are perhaps not as important or don't really move the book on. Whereas a 5 out of 5 book has amazing chapters. Every single word is there for a reason. Every chapter means something. It moves the book on in a certain way. That's the sign of a 5 out of 5 book. And of course the writing, let's not forget the writing. It has to be poetic and lyrical, and there has to be a lot of figurative language that really stands out. And I think a lot of the time, if writers do use this correctly, it means that they have a very unique style. You know, as soon as you read their book, you know that it's them. Certain writers just have this amazing writing style that I admire, and I can take a lot of quotations from as well, because I love quotable writing styles that I can, take quotes from and use them in my daily life, and I just think that's a really special quality. I also believe that the description to dialogue ratio needs to be very good as well. Description, there can't be too much of it, but there can't be too little either, because it needs to be vivid. I think it's sometimes quite hard to get the balance for quite a lot of writers, and also the dialogue, it needs to be believable. If it's not natural, I will not fall for it and it will not be getting a 5 out of 5. It sounds a bit harsh, but some writers really don't have natural dialogue and it just seems a little bit forced at times. And that's not the sign of a 5 out of 5-star book. For the second part of this video, I'm going to give some examples about books that I've given 5 out of 5 stars to, and hopefully it will prove some of my points that I've just talked about. The first one is perhaps the most obvious one. It is The Hunger Games by Suzanne. I gave this a 5 out of 5 every single time I read it, because I've reread it loads, because for me the characters are amazing. And I was talking about characters that I can really stand up for and defend. Katniss is one of them. If anyone insults Katniss, I'm not happy and I will defend her as much as possible. And I also think the messages and, the themes in this book are so relevant to today's society as well. They teach us a lot of messages. For example, there is a great focus on political things, such as tyrannical leaders and oppressive social forces, and how these ruin society and how we need to fight against them and stand up for what we believe. There are a lot of messages as well about the rich and the poor and the inequality between the two of them. We've got the capital who are surviving with beauty and wealth, and they're watching the Hunger Games for a form of entertainment. The poor people are suffering because of that. They have a lower chance of winning the games themselves because they don't have enough money, and I think it just puts into context so many things that are relevant in today's society. Another 5 out of 5 star book is again another YA dystopia, and it is Champion by Marie Lu. And this is the final book in the Legend trilogy. And to be honest, I didn't love the first 2 books as much as this one. I think the first one got a 4 out of 5 and the second one got a 4.5. But this one for me really impressed me more than any of the others. And the reason why it was so impressive was because not really because of the messages of the book, but more about the fact that it broke the rule that dystopia trilogies don't end well, because a lot of them, even the Hunger Games to be honest, I don't really like the ending of. It was definitely a very emotional ending, but one that worked really well in my opinion, and it was just a sign of a 5-star book. Immediately as soon as I finished reading this, I knew it was 5 out of 5. There's always this thought in the back of my head when I read a 5 out of 5 star book, I know that it deserves that rating, and if I'm a bit hesitant, I tend to give it a 4.5 instead, so I was absolutely certain that this deserved a 5 out of 5. One of the general fiction, perhaps adult fiction books that I would give a 5 out of 5 to is The Kite by Khaled Hosseini, because it's a very beautiful style. As I was saying, certain writers have very precise writing styles, and Khaled Hosseini completely has this amazing beauty to his writing, and it's really distinct as well. I always know that I'm reading his work. He's very cultural and deals with a lot of real life issues and wars going on in the world, and it really teaches you about the suffering in countries such as Afghanistan in this case. The characters as well are very multifaceted. They go on journeys, they improve. Amir and Hassan, I absolutely love reading about them. I think they're so debatable as well. There are so many points to argue about their characters. And I just think it's an amazing, beautiful book. Every single chapter is worthwhile. It teaches us messages about redemption, about how everyone can redeem themselves. It's just a really beautiful book that deserved 5 out of 5 every single time that I read it. Another 5 out of 5 star book for me is The Shadow of the Wind by Ruiz Zafón, because I think this really affirms the importance of reading and the power of books, how literature can shape us, how it can change us, how it's such a mysterious thing but something that we completely need in our lives. It also deals with a lot of things such as the Civil War in Spain. The Spanish Civil War is something that I'm really interested in. Obviously I do study Spanish, so I know a lot about that, and it's just great to read about it, how it was quite oppressive and how it affected Spain. This is set 5 years after the war, and there are definitely a lot of repercussions that you can see, and I think again it just teaches us messages about things that have happened in history, things that have affected humanity, and that's really important. And of course the bookish nature, how could I not give it a 5 out of 5. And let's not forget classics as well. Classics often deserve 5 out of 5 if they really spark me. Now, I don't agree with the idea that classics are better than any other book. I don't automatically give them higher ratings than anything else, but a lot of them are very impressive, and one of them is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Brontë. The reason why I love this was because of the character of Jane. She was so complex. I loved her character development from someone who was quite shy and moody as a child, and someone who is strong and independent as a woman. There was a lot of witty dialogue between Jane and Rochester, and I just thought the writing style was really beautiful as well, and for a classic it wasn't overly complicated, so I really understood what was happening. It didn't seem forced or laboured, and I really enjoyed the reading experience, and it was one of my favourite classics, if not my favourite. So those are some of my thoughts about giving 5 out of 5 stars to books. Hopefully it was interesting and that you've maybe read some of these books before or want to read some in the future. Definitely let me know down below in the comments what makes a 5-star book for you. Does it have to be perfect, or can it have flaws? What are the certain elements that you're looking for in a 5-star book? Hopefully this was an interesting discussion. I didn't really plan it out very much, so I'm not sure if it's a bit rambly, but hopefully my ideas are all there. When I edit it, it'll all be fine. So thank you for watching, and I will see you all again in my next video.